Disasters create large humanitarian and development challenges. The frequency and severity of disasters have increased over the last few years, also as a result of climate change. More than 226 million people are affected by disasters every year. More than 680,000 people died in earthquakes between 2000 and 2010, mainly due to poorly constructed buildings. Since 1980, drought and associated famine have claimed nearly 558,000 lives and affected more than 1.6 billion people. Cyclones, hurricanes and typhoons affect 37 million people. It is thus important to keep in mind that disasters are not natural. They only occur when people lack preparedness or the ability to cope with hazards.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Viner Simon Buenaventura from IPED 1C. I'm going to explain the NDRRMC, or National Risk Reduction Management. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, formerly known as the National Disaster Coordinating Council, or NDDC, is a working group of various government or non-government, civil sector and private sector organization of the governments of the Republic of the Philippines, established by the Republic Act 10121 of 2009. It is administered by the Office of Civil Defense under the Department of the National Defense. The Council is responsible for ensuring the protection and welfare of the people during disaster or emergencies. What are the objectives of National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Plan? The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan, or NDRRMP, is a long-term national sectoral plan aiming to address the four main priority areas as disaster prevention and mitigation, disaster preparedness, and disaster response, rehabilitation, and recovery. Mitigation and improvement strategies. The developments of mitigation strategies should flow from the risk management process with clear links to functional lead agencies as identified in the SDMP to ensure each risk and strategy is coordinated and managed by responsible agency. Prevention and mitigation strategies should be based on the risk assessments and can be considered in relation to examples of mitigation strategies include hazard-specific control activities such as flood, levees, or bush fire mitigation strategies, design improvements to infrastructure or services, land use planning and design decisions that avoid developments and communities' infrastructure in areas prone to hazards, community awareness campaigns to increase knowledge of how to prepare for disaster events, community education programs to build knowledge of the appropriate action to prepare for and respond to a disaster event, capital works such as live bank construction to reduce the impacts of flooding. Resilience activities include partnership building and engagement between sectors, annual programs, a management around essential services and essential infrastructure such as power. The concept of betterment is often considered predominantly within post-disaster recovery, and reconstruction should also form a key consideration. Pre-disaster through proactive mitigation strategies which aim to enhance and harden infrastructure to a more disaster-resilient standard. What is the disaster prevention and mitigation? Mitigation means to reduce the severity of a human and material damage caused by the disaster. Prevention is to ensure that the human action or natural phenomena do not result in disaster or emergency. What is disaster management? Understanding emergencies from prevention to mitigation. What is disaster management? Prevention efforts and coordinated responses to disasters save lives and lessen their impact on communities. Professionals in disaster management play a crucial role in preventing suffering, protecting people's livelihoods, and helping communities recover. Defining disaster management. Disasters take many shapes. Human-made disaster result from human errors and include industrial explosions or structural failures. Natural disasters result from physical phenomena and include earthquakes and droughts. Disaster classified as a complex can include epidemics, or armed conflicts. In whatever form, disaster disrupt communities and can take a serious toll on people, property, economies, and environment. They often stretch a community capacity to cope. Disaster management is a process of effectively preparing for responding to disaster. It involves strategical organizing resources to lessen the harm that disaster causes. It is also involved a systematic approach to managing the responsibilities of disaster prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. Preparedness. Well-coordinated responses to disaster require prior planning. This helps to ensure fast, effective response effort limits and duplicated efforts. Disaster preparedness plans. Identify the organizational resources, designated roles, and responsibilities, create procedures and policies, organize activities that improve disaster readiness. Prevention. Mitigation and prevention efforts aim to reduce the potential damage and suffering that disaster can cause. While disaster management cannot prevent disaster, it can prevent them from becoming compounded as a result of neglecting causal factors and manageable risks. Mitigation specifically refers to action taken that can lessen the severity of disaster impact. Investigating it measures that limit hazard can greatly reduce the burden of disaster. Consistency planning. Disaster readiness calls for contingency planning, advance the decisions about the managing humans and monetary resources, coordinating the procedures between different agencies and organizing logistics. Contingency plans answer three basic questions. What will happen? What will response be? What will be done ahead of time prepared? Response and recovery during immediately after an emergency. Disaster management focuses on delivering help and intervention that can save lives, safeguard health, and protect buildings, animals, and community property. Following an essential response, efforts shift towards supporting communities as they rebuild emotional, economically, and physically. Disaster relief. Disaster relief addresses the immediate of short-term needs of disaster-affected communities. It can include evacuation, search and rescue missions, and emergency medical assistance. Examples of disaster relief are setting up temporary shelters that provide a safe place to sleep, food, and emotional support from trained personnel, delivering meals and water, distributing emergency supplies and necessities such as toiletries for hygiene and traps, shovels, trash bags for cleanup efforts, providing emergency health services such as a first aid for inquiries and prescription medication replacement. What is disaster management? It is a comprehensive approach to preventing and preparing for responding to and aiding in emergency recovery effort, whether spreading emergency management for human-made or natural disaster. Professionals in the field play invaluable roles in saving lives and reducing suffering. Oh shit!
Are you okay? Oh my God!